What else? Yeah, you pick them.
Oh, oui.
I don't want to make anybody mad. I like the people who like me.
Yeah.
I've actually got a question for my dad. He's a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army.
Really?
Yeah, he was actually stationed in Wiesbaden from 2000, I think it was 2001 onward.
Wow.
And
We might have served together then.
Yes, he was actually the chief operational officer of the first AV.
Really?
Under Sanchez, I think.
Yeah.
And Casey,
Right.
which was right before.
Yeah, right before me. Yeah.
Anyways, his question is energy related.
Yeah.
Actually energy security related. So he says that there is an inherent risk in using finite energy resources that can be extended through sustainability and energy efficiency measures, but at some point they will be exhausted. But then there's also the option of laying out enormous capital sums to research into renewable energy resources. But that's not necessarily those that already exist. It can be something new. He says every 50 years there's essentially a new development
Sure.
in energy.
Yeah.
And such as the Manhattan Project was the precursor to using nuclear energy. So he says, how do you balance and weigh the risks of both of these options to become a more energy secure nation and also to become more sustainable, essentially?
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
Sorry.
No, I can actually answer it, though. First of all, let me say that food security and energy security will be the security issues of your time, much more so than it was during my time. I mean, you know, back to the Middle East, things like the the Israeli-Palestinian conflict will never be solved until they figure out water. Forget the politics. They got to figure out water. I mean, you know, the settlements generally go where the water is, and therefore, if they ever can get to something that sounds like a two-state solution, they got to figure out water. So, and that's just not in Israel and Palestine. I mean, that's around the world. So, water and food security, and now let me jump into energy security. I actually think the energy sector in the United States is on the leading edge of what will be sort of a glimpse of the future that your dad is alluding to. Here's what I mean. If I had a conversation with somebody in the energy industry probably 10 years ago, and by the way, Bill Higgs was in the oil sector as in an engineering capacity. So maybe I'll just volleyball the question over there. But 10 years ago, if you talk to there's 900 gas and electricity companies in the United States, roughly. But there's 9 of them that are dominant. And those 9, for 10 years ago, were trying to stiff-arm renewables. And I used to say to people on occasion, to prove that I'm right about people are alert to fossil fuels but not alert to other things, I'd say, how much do you pay for a gallon of gas when you're in America? Yeah, just give me a number. And you're going to be right, whatever you say.
Well, it's $2.30 now.
Yeah, okay, that's a good guess, $2.30. How much do you pay for a kilowatt hour of electricity? You have no idea. We don't. You know, gas company sends you a bill, you pay it, you're happy about it. That's not going to stay that way forever. So here's what's going to happen. The major industries they're not stiff-arming renewables anymore. Because here's the interesting way to think about this. The big industries are willing to give up some control in order to preserve power. That's a big intellectual. That sounds counterintuitive, but they've decided they're going to give up some control to things like renewables, but also to their customers in order to preserve their power. I think that, and here's what I mean by that. So what they'll say is they'll embrace renewables. They'll try to incorporate them into the grid that's still mostly dominated by gas and electricity. They'll go to customers and say, look, if you are willing to be part of the grid, if you can produce energy back into the grid, and we can distribute it for you. So now they've still got the power because they're the distributors. But they're harvesting knowledge at the edge here. They're harvesting power at the edge, or not power, but energy. I think that's the way the world's going to go. That's why ideas about, you know, that big corporations can stay kind of isolated, that countries can stay isolated. I don't think it's possible. I think, and in fact, one of the things I used to counsel as the chief military leader of our country was that the wave of the future is we're going to have to give up some control if we want to preserve our power. Remember what I said, Russia, China, Iran, Korea, and from Afghanistan to Nigeria. We can't do that ourselves. So what do? I don't know, maybe you find a way to build coalitions that really matter, that really contribute, that, you know, that can share values over time, but in the process you might actually have to give up a little control. And the energy sector is on the leading edge of it. So tell your father this is going to take care of itself, because doing it yourself is too expensive, and therefore it'll take care of itself.